defines the word perspective as a particular attitude toward or a way of regarding something, a point of view. Well, today's guest, Kathy Staten, she is hanging out here with us in the virtual studio to talk about how the proper perspective can propel your life and your business. You're hanging out here on the Sharvette Mitchell radio show. Don't you move. We'll be right back after this quick intro.
Whoa. Why y'all so happy?
You don't know? Sharvette Mitchell is on the radio.
It's time to get motivated, excited, and influenced. Why? It's the Sharvette Mitchell Radio Show, live from Richmond, Virginia. And now, here to motivate, excite, and influence you, Sharvette Mitchell.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sharvette Mitchell Radio Show, broadcasting live from the capital city of Richmond, Virginia, but heard and seen all across the World Wide Web. We know that our live streaming platforms are sending out notifications, telling our viewers, telling our listeners to come on in and check us out. So welcome to all those that are coming in from Facebook Live, or if you happen to be catching this in the replay, just type hashtag replay. We want to show you some love. Those that are listening from YouTube, hello, YouTube. Those listening from LinkedIn and Twitter, certainly those that are listening and watching from Sharvette.com, our main website, and we cannot leave out those that are listening in all of our podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts. Matter of fact, if you faithfully listen over on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and subscribe and rate our show while you are over there. And then certainly those that are hanging out other places like iHeartRadio and Blog Talk Radio and Stitcher, we are glad to have you as always. And so this segment is brought to you by my pop-up luxury retreat. Yes, it is going down in Orlando, Florida, November 3rd through November 6th. So you can jump over to joinsharvette.com. That's joinsharvette.com because I want you to join me on this wonderful luxury retreat. We have secured a 10,000 square foot mansion, and it is a business and professional development retreat that we want you to attend. So that's the sponsor for the show today. You'll get to hear a little bit more about that. Welcome to my sister and Deborah hanging out on YouTube. Listen, they holding it down on YouTube, and my mom Betty, who's holding it down early on Facebook. We are glad to have you. So let's go ahead and get into our topic of discussion today here on the Sharvette Mitchell Radio Show. And our guest is ready to come up and chat with you because the topic today is how the proper perspective can propel your life and business. And so Katherine L. Staten is a health and human service professional with well over 30 years experience behind her, under her belt, all of that. Her experience includes administering state and federal social service programming in local communities. With the over 30 years of professional experience, Kathy, who holds a Master of Science in Human Service Counseling from National Louisa University and a Bachelor of Science in Consumer Economics and Family Management from Southern Illinois University, has served in both public and private nonprofit organizations. And so she has a keen awareness of the real issues that face families and communities. She's also a certified mental health first aid instructor. And in her latest book, Descendants of Dysfunction, What We Can Learn from the Bible's Dysfunctional Families, Kathy seeks to start conversations about family life that may be difficult. It is her hope that readers will be encouraged to move beyond pain to healing and live dynamic lives. Without further ado, coming up here live on the Sharvette Mitchell Radio Show, put your hands together and give a virtual round of applause for today's guest, Kathy Staten, joining us live here. Hey, Kathy.
Hey, Sean. How are you?
I am doing well. How are you doing today?
I am great. Wonderful to be here with you today.
Yes, on this official start of summer. Is it how's the weather where you
Oh
are?
yeah, it's official. It's hot here in Chicago.
It's Chicago, the windy city. So shout out to
Yes,
all those
yes, yes, yes.
that may even be watching from Chicago. We're glad to have you. And so I'd love to kind of start this conversation. Hey, Madeline, thanks for being here. I'd love to start this conversation really from the beginning of how you even got into the space of human services. So how did it really start for you?
Okay. Well, it is definitely my chosen profession. I always wanted to help people. And so I went to school with that in mind. That generic bachelor's degree, that name of that generic name of that bachelor's degree that I got. And I believe at that time, even as a young teenager, a 20-year-old, I really knew and believed that the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world.
Oh, wow.
I believe that it's more about what's done and what's not done in our individual homes that impact the world. We can
Yeah.
impact the world by the type of families that we have and by the type of generations that we raise. And so I was very intentional about that. That gave me the classroom instruction and social services, and the other side was business. So that's good as well. And
Yeah.
and so I just think with that mindset, I think that many times we just discount the importance of the family. And
Yeah.
so in all of my work, I kind of always want to bring that to the forefront.
Yeah.
And so that's held me to do that. I mean, I've done everything from community organizing to administering, programs all over the state of Illinois. So, you know, I have loved all of it, and really do consider myself to be a servant of the people in those and everything that I've held as far as that's concerned. So yeah, I'm happy to do it. Happy to serve people.
Happy to serve, happy to serve. And so, what have you found in the work and research that you have done around, the things that happen or go on in families? How do they show up on someone's job? How do they show up if somebody's trying to, run a business?
Yes, that is so interesting that you say that because um, I was talking the other day about the brain, and certainly when you talk about perspective, it is a mental mindset. And thinking about the brain being the only organ that is not developed. So if you look at your heart and your kidneys and everything in the newborn, they are doing what they're going to do. They're miniature versions of what they shall become. But if you look at the brain truly is a blank slate. And what
Mm.
grows the brain is experiences. And experiences have a way of shaping our perspective to the point where um, a child from 0 to 3, those are the most important years in terms of development because that's when their brain is growing. And then at
Yeah.
about 2.5, 3 years old, the synapses begin to prune back if they're not being used. So earlier is very important, but I want to say that um, those are some of the things that I learned about the importance of what in terms of our perspective mentally, our outlook, our mindset, our mental view. All of
Yeah.
these things define what a perspective is. And so someone did some research and said that 99% of our stress and worry comes from our poor perspective and the
Wow.
incorrect way that we see things. So that can show up with me personally in terms of my goals. It shows up in relationships, both at home, school, work, church. My view and my perspective of what is happening shapes basically what I do, how I move forward, or how I don't move forward. And I know in your expertise in dealing with business owners,
Yes.
you already know, having built a business yourself, how important mindset and perspective is.
Yes. Oh my
So,
goodness.
so that's why this is so very important. And for you Bible readers out there, I don't want you to think I'm just coming from the positive thinking lens, because the Bible speaks to it as well. Speaks
Yes.
to your mindset and being positive. And so it has a spiritual aspect as well. So hopefully I answered your question.
Yes, you did a fabulous job there. So many things that you said right in there, and I do want to mention that you are your husband is a former pastor, so you do have also. I always gotta put that first lady there, but so many that brings so much of a breadth of experience and exposure to people. That's why I think it's pivotal to mention. But mindset is absolutely not this woo woo frou frou kind of thing. It absolutely impacts our businesses and our lives. And so I'm so glad that you mentioned that point. Even one of our viewers here, Miss Tammy, who is an educator, and when you started talking about that 0 to 3 and those early childhood experiences, she's testifying saying you are so so on point around that. If you're just popping in, hey, you're checking out the Sharvette Mitchell Radio Show, and we're talking about how the proper perspective can propel your life and your business. And we are here with our guest, Kathy Staten. Also, new book out, Descendants of Dysfunction. And those of you who are saying, Kathy seems familiar, you might have seen her during our Women's Summit that we had during Women's History Month. So she was one of our guests there. And we talked a little bit about her book, Descendants of Dysfunction, what we can learn from the Bible's dysfunctional families. And somebody be saying, what, the Bible had dysfunctional families, Kathy? Talk about that.
Girl, excellent material for this book. Excellent material.
Hold up, you have the book there. And mine, I think it's
excellent material in with these Old Testament families. And the book really is a study in Old Testament families. The book is set up in 7 chapters that stand alone about the dysfunction in different families in the Old Testament. And I wrote the book last year in 2021, but I had the title before that, probably a year before that. As a matter of fact, I had 3 titles. So I had to choose, and I thought this one was the most overarching, provided the greatest umbrella for the type of things that I want to begin to talk about and start conversations about. I knew that because I get like, ooh, what's that about? Dysfunction. So I get that. So, I have something that's going to, perk up, that interest. But it is so very befitting, because there is a lot of dysfunction in the families that I speak of. But as a part of the book, I also have a modern twist to it, because I have a section in each chapter that says, is this your family? And so, for instance, in the first chapter, I talk about Cain and Abel. And that chapter is how to mend a family rift. And so that speaks to many, many people who have family rifts and have family members that they don't talk to.
Yeah.
They don't fool with. And it's just a family rift that impacts not only those 2 individuals, but it impacts the generations, the cousins, so everybody kind of like becomes this collateral type of damage, because these have this rift. So how is it that we can mend the family rift? So hopefully the Bible stories, which are educational in themselves, but the fact that I can say, well, yeah, I haven't talked to, ain't whoever, and, how can I possibly get back in relationship with this person so that our relationships are no longer broken, but they are mended?
Ah, so well said. And so then how does that show up in business? Then that shows up with people, coming on social media saying, my family don't support my business. People don't support my business. Wow, some rift, something happened. I was on an interview earlier today, and the young lady asked me who was my greatest influence. And I said, my mom. Hey, mom. She's watching and such a strong supporter. And I said, I realized that might sound cliche, but for some people, that is not their testimony. That is not what they feel. from, as you've mentioned, there's something in the something
Yes.
that has happened, which
Yes.
is why, how our proper perspective can propel our lives and our businesses forward. And so if there is, in this example, a rift, what are some steps, action steps you would tell people, initial things to take?
Well, the overall in that portion of the book is that I say, people say, well, I don't want to live in the past. I don't want to live in the past. But when you let the past future, so much so that you're unwilling to put yourself out there to try to mend the rift, then you are letting the past control the future. If you look at it in
Yes.
that way, because what has happened, the things that have happened, all of these hundreds or thousands of interactions, and that's how family rifts usually, it's not usually just one thing. It's usually
Right.
a number of interactions that have gone wrong. I have my perspective, the person they have their perspective. Okay, we're talking about perspective, right?
Yes.
And when I begin to try to bridge that gap with that person, our perspectives will probably remain the same. We won't probably change each other's minds initially. And if you do, wonderful, great. But
Yeah.
but then you have to begin where you are. Don't start bringing up all that who, whatever, all of this stuff that has happened. Try to forge that from right where you are. And what you may find out is, as you forge that relationship, you're going to say, well, wow, maybe I could have seen this differently. And that
Yeah.
person is going to come back and say, well, maybe I could have done this differently. And let me apologize for these things that have happened that may have been, my fault. And then I can say, well, I can see now that I could have handled this better. It's almost like our children. Raising mine used to always, when they blamed other people, I tried to get them to tell me what percentage of the issue can you take. Okay,
Uh-huh.
you say the other person was 80% at fault, then that gives you 20% of the responsibility to fix it. And so when you look at it like that, everybody has a part to play, and we're not just pointing a finger and saying what you did, what you did, what you did. Because rifts really have long-lasting negative impacts on our
Yes.
families. Now, let me
Mm.
say this, because I don't want anybody to get this wrong. Sometimes you have to make or establish new family connections. So I don't want anyone who needs to have a boundary with their family to keep themselves safe.
Yes.
Okay, I don't want them to think that by all means you always have to reconnect with your family, because there are some instances where, yes, you need to keep your boundaries to keep yourself mentally, physically safe. So
Absolutely.
I want to say that as well.
Yes,
Okay.
that's good.
All
Thank you.
right.
Thank you for saying that.
Okay.
Thank you for mentioning that disclaimer there and giving that guidance. And so, Descendants of Dysfunction, it's kind of the book that we're referencing. You can go right here, Descendants of Dysfunction book.com. Also, if you're hanging out on Sharvette.com, our main website, we have a great blog post that has Kathy's all of her bio information, the links to her main website, the links to be able to purchase this book and continue this conversation. I think this is a great spot to pause and take a commercial break. But when we come back, I want to capture a comment. Tammy she said, absolutely, David's relationship with his children. That was something out of the Bible she mentioned. I don't know if David is covered. I can't
In
remember
the
if David is
book,
covered. All
it's
right,
in there.
we're gonna talk about, just because Kathy typed that in, excuse me, Tammy typed that in. We're gonna have Kathy
It's
talk a
in
little
there.
bit about that. It's in there. It's in there. All right. So I'm gonna let you relax in the virtual green
Okay.
room, and then we're going to be back here on the Sharvette Mitchell Radio Show. Take a quick commercial break. Go ahead and take this opportunity to tag a friend to share this broadcast out. If you're saying, "Oh, this is," I'm thinking about my perspective and that percentage of how much you own something. If there has been a rift in anything, how much of that percentage can you own? All right, we're going to be right back after this. For the last 6 years, I've hosted events in Richmond, Virginia, but in 2022, I introduced the Pop-Up Luxury Retreat happening in Orlando, Florida, November 3rd through November 6th. Something special happens to a group of women when they meet in person, dine together, and sleep on site without the distractions of the outer world, and in a place that is a physical representation and manifestation of where they are going. After the last 2 years, I am positive you want connection, community, a touch of adventure, and a time to rejuvenate. So I'm inviting a very small group of women entrepreneurs and leaders to join me in Orlando, Florida, in a 10,000 square foot mansion. In this luxury setting, we'll focus on your marketing, your support systems, and your mindset. Schedule a meet and greet call at joinsharvette.com to discuss this retreat.
I'll be here to hear what's on your mind. Take this time to talk and get it right. You know I'll be there all your life. When you need me, I'll be by your side. By your side. And every day is a different day. Everything isn't everything. Even when you think things can never ever be the same. Don't be scared of the world, I'll be here to stay. By your side. Even when your heart ain't listening, or your mind takes you a different way, towards a different path. All you gotta do is sit and ask. When you need me, I'll be by your side.
When the adults in a child's life talk early and often about the dangers of underage drinking, the message gets stronger every time.
I'll be by your side.
Talk. They hear you.
All right, welcome back. Let's bring our guest back up to the virtual stage here. Kathy Staten with us here, certainly dropping nuggets as we talk about how the proper perspective can propel your life and your business, and certainly her health and human service professional background, and now author is lending to this conversation. So, David,
Yes.
what can we learn? What can we gain from this conversation around
Listen,
David?
So I want to, if you don't mind, I got a little excerpt I would like to read from the book.
Yes.
It says, because each chapter had a little section on what made the family dysfunctional, because sometimes we don't even know that we are dysfunctional.
Right.
So
Yeah.
in this particular chapter 6, it is the rape of Tamar, healing from family secrets. And so under the portion that says what made them dysfunctional, I write, it has been said that apples don't fall too far from the trees. David's children modeled his behavior. His son took the virginity of his sister Tamar. In his guilt, he turned against her, never accepting responsibility for what he did. His brother Absalom took on his father's murderous ways by killing his own brother. Like most women during these times, Tamar was voiceless, powerless, and lived a life of shame. David was a man after God's own heart. Yet his heart was away from his family, allowing rivalry, rape, shame, hatred, and murder to find a resting place in his home and family. So that's what made them dysfunctional. Okay, and then I go on to talk about is this your family? I'll talk a little bit about what made the family strong, but I have a section in each chapter. Is this your family? Is this something that you've been through? And then I go into, how the family secrets, and I go into scapegoating and things like that. So
a lot to unpack, yeah. And certainly, for those who don't read the Bible, listen, the Bible can compete with any reality show, any action show. I'm pointing this way because my TV is over there. Okay. Any reality show, any action show that is out there. And so someone might say, well, gosh, how do I have the proper perspective if I have been through something like Tamar? Like how do I get through this?
Yeah. So I just want to say that this definitely relates back to our topic on perspective,
Yes.
because Tamar would have had the perspective that she will never be, no one will ever protect her.
Mm.
And so she's going to lack trust. Not even her father, after he found out, did anything to hold her brother responsible in any type of accountability. Okay, so that's a perspective that certain people cannot be trusted. Even people that are supposed to care for you won't. Okay, and so people who quote unquote get away with things, usually they have the perspective that they can do anything they want to do. So like when you let people get away with things, you're like, oh, don't, they get worse.
Right. It's not like it's not gonna happen again. Just
Yes,
let it.
they get worse. And so
Yeah.
that's a perspective that someone goes through our life with. Like, I can do whatever I want to do, and nothing is going to happen to me. But I talk about, of course, getting support, whether there's clinical help. I talk about that, and this is one of the chapters. I also talk about maintaining boundaries if you must to stay healthy. It may be a situation where you can't go around your family because nobody wants to acknowledge a thing is a thing. It's like, oh, that was a long time ago. Get over it. Nobody wants to acknowledge that how devastating that was to your life. And in this instance, it changed the whole trajectory of Tamar's life. And so, like I said, she lived a life of showing anything about the biblical times. You know she lived a life of shame, never to be married. The trajectory of her life, she probably would have married someone in another kingdom, because that's what they did back in those days. So she would have maybe married a leader in another kingdom, and that would have kept the peace between David's kingdom and that king's kingdom, and she probably would have been queen someplace herself. So anyway, so it changed everything in her life. And she was basically like, I talk about scapegoating. Like the scapegoat gets blamed for everything. You know, the scapegoat in the Bible, the scapegoat in the Bible had to bear the sins, and then they had to go like away from the camp to take the people's sins with them. Well, the scapegoat in our family is the one who wants us to address the dysfunction.
Yes.
But they end up being the scapegoat, and everything they do is bad because the family does not want to acknowledge and deal with the dysfunction. So I talk about scapegoating. I talk about support in terms of clinical support. And then I talk about sometimes people, you have to you may have to figure out a way to have another family. You have to find out other people, that can support you and be as family. Continue to subject yourself to being hurt by your own real blood family. So I talk about that in the chapter. Is this your family? And so that's what I talk about.
So much there. And again, Descendants of Dysfunction is the book that's being referenced. How can people pick up a copy, Kathy?
They can go to Descendants of Dysfunction book.com. Here it is right here. And I got so many the cover as well. The cover is interesting because it's a lot of people on here, but some people are hidden because it's people all back here behind the words. And that signifies how people are not feel that they are unseen. Like they're in our families, but they are unseen. Like the child, the child is not the favorite. I talk about that too. Talk about sibling, how to create sibling harmony of sibling rivalry. So we got some favorite children, and then we got some children maybe sometimes that like they're not the favorite. I just put it that way. And guess what? They know they're not the favorite.
Right. They feel it, they see it, they hear it, they know they're not the favorite. And so all of these things blend over into our life and blend over into the perspective that we bring into life, careers, businesses. So if we think about a Tamar who doesn't feel protected, doesn't know she can trust really anybody, how that shows up is the person who wants to control everything, wants to control their like, I want to control everything because I can't trust. I'm not sure if I can trust other people. So that might show up as overworking.
Yes.
Would you
And
agree?
it definitely shows up as not asking for help.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a generational thing in our culture as well.
Yeah.
That's our perspective. I can't really trust people.
Mm-hmm.
We have that perspective sometimes in work and business. We have that perspective. Well, I got to do everything myself because I can't really trust people. Some people can't be trusted, but I can't tell nobody nothing because they gonna you just can't trust nobody. That's not always true,
right?
But the perspective that we have is shaped by an experience.
Mm-hmm. And so get back
It's
to
an
the
experience.
Yes. And even the person who felt like not the favorite in the family, how that shows up in life and career and business is maybe I don't charge what I'm supposed to charge because there's a self-worth struggle there of am I worth it? Because I haven't felt like the favorite, so I haven't felt like the chosen one. Do I have the right to charge what I deliver on?
Or am I even good enough?
Mm-hmm.
Or like, am I even really good? Am I really even good enough to do this? Because that's really been my experience. It's like usually those are the children who they usually end up being really great in terms of their accomplishments. And the favorite children, because they are the favorite, most of the time end up being the greatest disappointment to their parents because they can never do any wrong. And so why, like I'm the stuff.
Uh-huh.
I just am. And so I've seen that play out in families as well.
Yeah.
The favorite is just, they can't do no wrong. But all of that shapes our perspective. It shapes our perspective, which is so very important.
So very important. So, Kathy, I know our time has flown by, my goodness, which is always a good discussion for things that help us, with our business and our lives. And certainly this show is geared towards entrepreneurs, but what goes on internally and in our perspective and our mindset, that impacts that impacts your business. And so that's why we have these conversations. I know you're available for speaking. I know you're available for other things. Tell the listeners and the viewers how they can connect with you and services perhaps that you offer.
Okay, so I do have a website, flourishandgrow.org. It's been coming up on the screen a few times.
Yes.
You should be able to go there and send me a message or join my email list where I'm going to start sending out some communications and blogs and different content, written content. You can do that. And then I'll get your information that way. I'm just beginning to really organize my services for all type of sectors, of course, because I do trauma-informed healing center training. So getting some contacts in schools to help the professional development of teachers and how to build a trauma-informed schools and trauma-responsive schools. So the information can go for police departments, cities, anybody who has basically employees. And also with the mental health first aid training is that even in corporate, leaders need to have some information about mental health for first aid. What it does is it allows you to recognize the beginning stages of when someone is having mental health issues. Now, if you're not diagnosing them, you're doing just like what first aid does. Just enough to the authorities get there and the other people come and get them, but you are bridging the gap right there to support that person to get to the services that they need. And so I am able to teach mental health first aid, and the people who finish it's a one-day class, they get a 3-year certification in mental health.
Wonderful.
Everybody at least needs to have, that's like a basic that everybody
Mhm.
needs. Anybody needs. Everybody needs that. So yeah, those are some of the areas that I'm moving into. So no help
Yeah.
and support.
All right. Wonderful. And again, flourishandgrow.org.
Yes.
Flourishandgrow.org. If you are listening or watching from Sharvette.com, just look down below. You'll see full bio and links to both websites. If you are listening from podcasts, any of our podcast platforms, just look down below in the show notes and you'll see the connection points and the information there. And also, I noticed that when we went over to flourishandgrow.org, there's a little gift. There's something free that you actually get for joining the email list.
Yes. So last year, at the beginning of last year, I wrote a book. And the ebook is Trusting a Certain God in Uncertain Times.
Oh,
Because
wow.
there's still so much uncertainty in our
Right.
lives, nationally, globally, even in our homes. And so I wanted to write a book that would speak to believers in that they can be confident in God because He is certain. He's about the only
Yeah.
thing that is certain
The only thing.
in these times. So trusting us in uncertain times. If you join my email list, then you will get that ebook sent to you electronically.
And that is complimentary, listeners.
Yes.
That is complimentary, flourishandgrow.org. And I am telling you what, that is going to be a wrap. Let me check here. Definitely shout out to my sister, my blood sister, Kim. This can definitely get Black families talking. We don't want to deal with the dysfunction in our families. Yes, so true.
That's so true.
We want to get the conversation going, and that is what your objective is.
Yes.
With
Our
the work that
conversation.
you do. Yes, start the
Yes.
conversation, the work that you do, the book that you have, and all of that. Well,
Yes.
Kathy, it has been great just chatting with you. Thank
Time
you for
went
being here.
by fast.
Yeah, it did. It did. And my last question we ask all of our guests, the goal of the show is to motivate, excite, and influence. And we want to
Okay.
know what continues to motivate you.
What continues to motivate me is the impact that I can have on individuals and families.
Yeah.
That continues to motivate me because I know that it is a message that needs to be sent out, and sometimes it's difficult to send it out,
Mm-hmm.
but I still need to be sending that message out
Yeah.
to deal with our trauma, our dysfunction, and then I want people to know that they can be just as dynamic as they want to be.
Yeah.
That does not have to hold you back. You can be dynamic despite dysfunction.
And that is your goal there. That
That's
is your
my goal.
motivation.
That's my
Yes.
goal. Yes.
Dynamic despite dysfunction. I told a fib. I gotta bring up your skincare. We gotta just share that real quick before we go.
Okay, so I do have a e-commerce store. It's called Kathy's Creams and Things, where I have organic whipped shea butter and scrubs. And I had a crisis with my skin, and I was seeking products and really couldn't find what I wanted. So I started making my own products in 2016, and I opened up the e-commerce store in 2019. So that's Kathy's Creams and Things. If you want to check out some good shea butter and scrubs.
And it is good. It'll have your hands feeling super, super good. All right,
Oh, thank
Kathy.
you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Sharvette.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. That is going to be a wrap for today's show. Thank you for all of our listeners and viewers, live or in the replay. We are always honored to have you here as a part of the Sharvette Mitchell Radio Show. And as a reminder, this segment was brought to you by my upcoming pop-up luxury retreat that's happening in Orlando, Florida. Join me. Just jump over to joinsharvette.com, joinsharvette.com, and you'll find out all the deets and all of the information right there for you. Thanks. My mom is saying good information. Thank you. Thank you, Betty Jean Stanley Mitchell. All right. It's a wrap. We'll see you all later on the web. Bye.
Live from Richmond, Virginia, you've been listening to the Sharvette Mitchell Radio Show. Catch Sharvette Mitchell every Tuesday at 6 p.m., interviewing all the stars you want to hear from. So until next week, stay motivated, excited, and influenced. This is the Sharvette Mitchell Radio Show.